What does freedom mean to you? Does it mean the freedom to choose? The freedom to have a family and raise your kids according to your own values? What about living a wild, adventurous life, experimenting with music, relationships, or art? What does freedom really mean? What if freedom meant something that only a few Americans still understood? What if it meant that your choices and your values were set by you, rather than by some politician in a far-off capital? Some people think we're only free to choose to live exactly how they live, by their moral code, or their narrow worldviews. But if liberty means anything, it means that you, and you alone, have the power to exercise your rights to which the laws of nature and nature's God granted you. It's time to put these principles back into action. It's time to restore the American dream, activate in our communities, and take our country back. It's time to wake up, America. Good morning, Rise and Freedom at 7:02. You're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. Glad to have you here. It's an exciting day today. I'm headed to Miami tonight. We've got a really great show planned for you today, though, and you're going to get two more great shows, one tomorrow, one on Thursday, and then Friday, it's vacation time. I'm just going to take the day off, so you'll have to do something else on Friday. Are Americans losing their work ethic? Matt Welch over at Reason Magazine did a deep dive on the numbers, and we look at the behavior of workers who have had it, with increasing productivity and decreasing wages. Also, I talk about ways to make money without selling your soul at the top of the show. And at 7:22 a.m., the Attorney General of Missouri, Eric Schmidt, filed a lawsuit against the feds for colluding with big tech on censorship. We'll discuss that and the misinformation campaign that big tech is engaging in just this morning to gaslight us into believing that PayPal didn't do what they said they would do. We'll sort through the lies and the BS. And at 7:30 a.m., I've got Jon Miltimore from the Foundation for Economic Education on the anatomy of the deep state. No longer fodder for online conspiracy theories. The deep state's agenda is now out in the open for all to see. We'll pull back the curtain and look at the clues that have been left for us over the past decades. At 8 a.m. this morning, Rare Camellia, she wants to weigh in on our topic from the other day of emotional affairs versus physical affairs. No, CJ, not government affairs, actual physical affairs. You know, the ones that make you feel... At 8:30 a.m., JD Tuccille will join us to talk about how to survive a nuclear Armageddon, a how-to guide. Doesn't that sound lovely? Put you in a good mood. And to close out the program today, William Shatner in his new book describes why his space flight was like a funeral. All that and more on the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. Thanks so much for joining us today. Glad to have you here on the program. We've got a lot to cover today, but first, before we do, I want to remind everyone that today is a continuation of our social media coordination efforts. So I'm asking all of our listeners and viewers this morning to join us on Twitch. Today is Twitch Tuesday. I see our friend Camellia, Robbie, and Tolly are already over there this morning. Of course, if you're like Melissa Roysden and you enjoy the show on YouTube or any of the other platforms that we're streaming on Facebook, and on the wakeupAmericaShow.com website, wherever you like to watch the show, feel free to do so. But if you want to help support the program today, and you don't mind joining us over on Twitch, I would be super grateful if you wouldn't mind. Thank you very much. I see Chris Morrell's over there saying he's going to jump over. Thank you to all of our friends who are helping to coordinate our efforts over on Twitch. All right, let's start with the top of the show topic. Americans are losing their work ethic. Matt Welch writes in Reason Magazine that even reduced immigration and job openings for miles aren't luring America's ever-growing workforce dropouts back in. Now, and I like how he starts this discussion with the topic of immigration simply because in this he is explaining the argument that a lot of people who are immigration restrictionists make, which is that, if you cut off the supply of cheaper labor, then employers would be forced to raise wages here in the United States for lower skilled native born workers. And it's kind of demonstrated the fiction behind the contention that, that there, were some jobs, Americans, it's kind of demonstrated the fiction behind the idea of, oh, well, if you do this, well, then Americans are going to take these jobs, right? Well, it's supposed to be, well, Americans won't do these jobs. Well, there are jobs that Americans won't do. And we're learning that right now, right? Because we now have an actual real world test of this hypothesis, right? The US took in about 1.7 million fewer working age immigrants than would have come at the prior intake rate. According to an analysis of the Census Bureau's current population survey data put together from the University of California, Davis, the US has 1.7 million fewer working age immigrants versus the pre 2020 trend. So, meanwhile, without those immigrants, the domestic economy has experienced a hiring explosion with the unemployment rate, which measures the percentage of people who are actively looking for but can't find a job. It's now hit a 50-year low. Inflation adjusted average wage growth jumped for a little while and then increased by about 4% annualized for 12 consecutive months. So this should have been the moment when the high number of people who are Americans who are classified as not in the labor force got off the sidelines and back into the job market. But that's not what happened. So we did not see an increase in work rates or labor force participation of Americans who are already here. This is from an economist by the name of Nicholas Eberstadt, who says we've got this incredible peacetime labor shortage, and we also have a drop in the number of people in the workforce by about 3 million people lower than we would have expected on the trend before COVID, and that's leaving out immigration, so it's actually lower than that. So for every 25 to 54-year-old guy who is out of work and looking for a job in 2022, there are 4 guys who either working who are neither working nor looking for work. So I know some of these things get a little bit confusing. So let me slow it down and break it down here. So for every guy 25 to 54, so men my age, who is out of work and trying to find a job, there are 4 men out there like myself who aren't working and aren't even trying to find a job, right? So this is the fastest growing component of men in this age group, and it has been the fastest growing component for about 60 years now. So men who are not working and don't want to work, right? It's kind of startling to see some of these trends. The United States is where a lot of Europeans have always come to work, and they have a lower labor force participation rate in the United States now has a lower labor force participation rate than any European country except for Italy. So that's kind of weird for a trend, that we're looking at right now. There's not a lot of good explanations for why this is. We can only speculate and look at some of the examples of what people are saying. I'd be curious what you think. You can send us a text at 573-319-1586. And I'm deadly serious. I really want to know what you think about this topic. Why do you think that men 25 to 54 are deciding not only are they not working, but they don't want to work, right? I mean, again, your guess is as good as a lot of people's guess, but this is kind of a seismic shift in the labor market that we're looking at right now. And it's kind of upending everything from civil society to politics. And I mean, economists are saying, there's nothing good that comes out of this trend, right? It isn't like the 7 million dropouts are working in community gardens or brushing up on their Schopenhauer or whatever, right? But what this trend has meant is slower economic growth for the country, wider income and wealth gaps, more dependence on government welfare programs, more pressure on fragile families, less social mobility, less involvement in society, and a lot more deaths of despair. This is according to an economist by the name of Eberstadt. And they say that this trend of not working is very habit forming. The employment rate for males between 2001 to 2021 decreased in every age bracket younger than 55 and increased in every cohort 55 and older. So the younger the group, the more dramatic the drop. 16 to 19-year-old males, in terms of labor participation, dropped from 50% to 36%, 16 to 19-year-old males. So we could actually be rapidly approaching a moment where half the population hasn't had a job before the age of 25 years old. Can you believe that? Have not had a job at all ever. How old were you when you had your first job? I'd be curious to hear. 573-319-1586 is the text line. Chris Morrill asks the real question over there, says, how are these people eating if they're not working? I mean, some of them are on welfare, right? Some of them, I think a lot of them are living with their parents. Michael Nip joined us over there and said this is the first time he's able to join us live. Good morning. Good to see you, Michael. The Corpse 111th says he started working at 16 years old. I think, yeah, my first job that I had, I was 13 years old, 13 and 14 years old. Those summers I worked with my dad, landscaping for, we were on the H&R Block projects in Kansas City, as well as Brush Creek. So if you've ever been to Kansas City and seen Brush Creek, a lot of those trees and shrubs and bushes and things like that, I might have planted them myself, but either that or my dad. But to think that now 16 to 19-year-olds are like very rarely, many of them are holding a job. Yeah. Is this mean slower economic growth? Sure. Yeah, you know what? Here comes Lee from New Orleans with a really good text this morning. He says men are tired of being blamed for everything in society, so they're checking out. That's probably one of the reasons, Lee. I'm not going to say it's all of the reasons, but yeah, not only just blame for everything in society, we're checking out, but I mean, the amount of responsibility that keeps getting piled up on our shoulders, and our wages. Our real wages, in terms of real dollars, is shrinking, right? But the productivity has been going up. And one of the things that isn't mentioned in this article is about how productivity in the United States has increased, right? And we have, each American worker has become more and more productive over previous decades. But what has happened to our wages? They've grown stagnant. Right? The only way that and workers in the economy, and this is why people in my age group, especially and younger, have had, in order to get wage increases, have had to switch jobs. And they're like, well, why don't you stick with one employer and stay there your whole life? You can't get a raise. Now, I know that there are outliers, and I'm speaking in generalities, and there are people who are going to be watching us this morning and being like, well, I got a raise at my job, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't happen for most of us. Okay. I don't think in my life, in my career, I have ever gotten a raise. And the only way I've been able to get a raise is to go either work at another job or to go work for myself, which is, of course, what I'm doing right now. And what I want to talk to you about doing. No, this isn't some Amway scam. No, this isn't some marketing scheme for me to get you to sign up for something like that, or pyramid scheme. But I wanted to talk to you about one of the ways that you can work towards financial freedom. And I know that, again, this sounds like a sales pitch or anything like that, but all I'm going to do is just give you a website that you can use to help you to make more money. And to do that, what I recommend is, number one, read my article that I wrote at fee.org last week. It was published, I believe. Simple ways to make money. And in it are some tips, like things like buying vending machines, buying dividend bearing stocks, things that you can buy to make money, 3D printing, which is a little bit more complicated, but still another way that you can make money. But I actually signed up for this new website that I want to share with you that I'm really excited about using. And you're probably going to start seeing some commercials in the show for it that I'm going to, for products that I'm going to get from this website. It's called Digistore24. And this is essentially affiliate marketing. So like if you have, Stephanie and my wife and I were talking about this the other day about, marketing. Who do you sell to? Like if you're in sales, who do you sell to? And she talked about like being embarrassed about like selling to your friends. And we were kind of making the joke about, Amway products and kind of like, how annoying it is when somebody is like, hey, do you want to look at my Scentsy candle store? And sure, yeah, it is. But I mean, if you think about it, one of the best ways to make sales is to actually, sell to people that because you already know them and you can have a conversation with them, right? You can start a conversation with them. And if you know what their needs are, you can say, hey, listen, you might like this product because it will help you to, clean cars faster. Or like, I've got a really good, dish soap to help you, wash your dishes better or whatever. But I found this website and I'm going to start using it, and I haven't had any results from it just yet, but I've done my homework on it. And the reason why I signed up for it is because it offers really high commissions. And for me, I don't want to work for someone else. Okay. So that I want to try and avoid that. I want to have the kind of financial freedom. And I think a lot of people my age want to have this kind of financial freedom as well. They don't want to go work for the man where the wages are depressed and they put you in these stupid, I mean, I'm trying to avoid cursing here. These stupid meetings, they waste your time and your life in these stupid meetings. These employers who do not care about you, they force you to go to these corporate retreats and make you watch these 3-4 hour webinars that very rarely have anything to do with what you have to do in your real job. And I think a lot of men have just had it. And they're not just dropping out because they're being blamed for all the world's problems and they're sick and tired of trying to solve everybody's problems when nobody cares about their own. And I totally get my boy Lee from New Orleans, totally get what you're saying there this morning. But I have to say, there is financial freedom out there for people to not have to go and work for the man. Now, can everybody do that? No. Do some people need to go and be workers and work in a plant, work in a factory? Sure. Am I trying to hire somebody to work for me? Yeah, absolutely. Does that make me a hypocrite? I don't think so, because I still think that the reason why so many people don't want to work for somebody else is because the opportunities to make money online are still out there, because it's still a gold mine. Now, this website, Digistore24, essentially what it does is it gives you a list of companies that you can sell their products. And for God's sakes, if you've got a network, let's say, what is your hobby, right? Let's say you're into scuba diving, or say you're into, basket weaving, right? You can pick companies that are from this website that are in your niche, and then you can market those products to people that you know, right? And here's the thing. One guy on this website that I was reading about, he sells only really high ticket items. So he sells like really expensive items to rich people. But I mean, sometimes, I don't know, was it Glengarry Glen Ross? What was the movie or the show where the guy's like, he was a salesman and he's like, I just want to make that one big sale. He's like, I don't want to do all these little sales. I just want to make that one big sale. Somebody's going to have to text in and tell me what movie is that from. 573-319-1586. I got to go to commercial break, but we can talk about this a little bit more when we get back. But I do want to talk about Attorney General Eric Schmidt, who is suing big tech. This morning, the misinformation campaigns and the gaslighting that's happening about the PayPal scandal that rocked the internet over the weekend, it's just, there's too much crap out there to count. We've got a great show for you today. Don't forget to join us. Brady Roberts, if you don't mind, join us over on Twitch if you can, if you'd like to. It's voluntary. I won't nuke you if you don't. We've got a great show for you today. We're going to have so many awesome guests. Rare Camellia joins us. JD Tuccille on literally, he's going to teach us how to survive a nuclear holocaust. So it's going to be a great show. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Morning again in America. Our country is prouder and stronger and better.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Good morning. It's 7:23. You're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. Glad to have you here. Time to rise in freedom. If you're joining us online this morning live, thank you so much for doing so. We're all trying to coordinate our efforts on social media to help us to grow and build each platform. And so we all try and gather together on a different platform every day. Today is Tuesday, so it's Twitch Tuesday. Join us over on Twitch if you can. My username over there is the only one that's really different on all of my platforms, because usually, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, it's all AP for Liberty. But over on Twitch, it's actually Stream Liberty. So if you wouldn't mind joining us over on Twitch this morning at Stream Liberty, I'd be super grateful. Otherwise, feel free to watch us on any of our platforms, and we're grateful to have you here joining us this morning. All right, I'm sick of the gaslighting. I'm sick and tired of this. I'm sick of this
How dare you?
BS, because we are
led by very, very stupid people.
Yes, we are. I saw this
Very, very stupid people.
this morning. If you're watching the show,
Continue.
if you're watching the show versus listening to the live stream later, you can see on the screen that I've pulled up this Twitter, right? This is what's quote unquote trending on Twitter. It's not really trending on Twitter. This is one of their fake trending things where they try and, in order to advance big tech's agenda, they will make something look like it's trending, and they will offer their own big tech explanation for what's going on in order to gaslight us, essentially. Johnny Martinez over on Facebook this morning, I think he's from our friends over there at Do Not Trust Government on Facebook, says government is pure evil. Amen, Johnny, and thank you for joining us on the show this morning. Appreciate your input. Twitter this morning has this fake trend where they're trying to gaslight us. This is what they're saying. PayPal has no intention to fine customers over misinformation. Verify and Bloomberg report. Oh, well, guess what? Verify and Bloomberg report it. So you know what? That must mean that it's true. Verify and Bloomberg are reporting it. So they're not going to find people over misinformation. You can trust Bloomberg. I mean, come on. It's Michael Bloomberg's outfit. You can trust him, right, Flame Half? Oh, I mean, if Bloomberg says so, and Verify? Wow, the website's called Verify. I trust them completely. Underneath it says, PayPal stated on Monday that it has no intention, stated on Monday, by the way, but the policy dropped over the weekend. PayPal stated on Monday that it has no intention to fine customers for misinformation after revising its acceptable use policy that included incorrect information This is according to Verify and Bloomberg. The erroneous, oh, it's erroneous. Moses supposes his toes were roses, but Moses supposes erroneously. A little Sound of Music there. Everybody, any fans of Sound of Music? Oh, okay, I was going to say. There we go. Yes, thank you. Okay, shut up. The erroneous version of the AUP, which is effectively PayPal's terms of service, has been revised. Oh, okay, well, good to know. We're glad to hear that. Verify reports that the prohibited activities list does not include language surrounding spreading misinformation or the $2,500 in damages. Ooh, okay, good to know. Verify says it's asked us, Verify viewers Bill and Ricardo asked us if PayPal is going to fine people for spreading misinformation. No, here's where that claim came from. Here we go. And then Bloomberg says, PayPal says it has no intention of fining customers for spreading misinformation after attracting criticism for publishing a new user agreement outlining such a plan. It included incorrect information. It's not doing. And what's interesting, this is how you know it's a fake trend. If you're listening to this later, I'm scrolling through my Twitter feed, and you can see right here when you click on that. Look, these are the Washington Times, Reuters, 9 News Denver, Bloomberg, and Verify are the only results that come out on this one. So this is how you know when it's fake news, when it's, big tech trying to fake you out with their gaslighting. Let me pull this up. I love this meme that I shared this morning. You can see it over here. It's free speech. Wait. Let me pull it up. Hold on. Did you type this? You can't see it. Dang it. Come on now. I can't get it to show on the screen. It's free speech. Did you type this? It's free speech, bitch. $2,500 fine. F you. I cancel my account then. And then at the bottom, he says, I was just kidding. For some reason, unfortunately, I cannot show it on this. Oh, there we go. Trying to show memes on my live stream. There we go. I was just kidding. I canceled my account. I was just kidding. I have seen a lot of people canceling their accounts. Have you seen many people announcing that they were canceling their accounts over on PayPal? I certainly have seen quite a few. Robbie Thurman says, hey, PayPal, don't pee on me and tell me it's raining. And what's interesting, too, is the way that they're wording this one, and it looks like they've scrubbed the language that was available there earlier this morning, was that they're saying that they're not going to fine you. They're not going to fine you. It's not a fine for misinformation. It's a fee. So they're basically what they're doing is they're kind of using the same sort of Obamacare semantics argument to try and say that they're not going to fine you for misinformation. It's basically going to be as if you're involved in a lawsuit and then, if there's damages, then PayPal could pull $2,500 from your account for damages. So it's not a fine, it's damages, right? So it's the same. It's just gaslighting. Dang it, I got to go to commercial break. But I do have a great guest to come. We've got a ton of great guests today and a great show left to go. I want to talk to my buddy Jon Miltimore about an article that he wrote over at FEE.org about the deep state. No longer the realm of Alex Jones. We know you are evil. We're going to come to you. 1776 will commence again. No longer the realm of conspiracy theorists. Now out in the open and the mainstream alternative media. Wake Up America Show with Austin Petersen at wakeupamerica.show.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Austin's wife. I want to thank you all for You're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us. I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you? I want to ask you today to join Petersen's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Petersen's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
Speaker Pelosi's husband, Paul, made a big investment in chips just before Congress votes on a bill that would give $52 billion in subsidies and tax credits to the chip industry.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information he received from you?
No.
And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back. Do not come. Do not come.
Have you ever received a royalty payment from a company that you later oversaw money going to that company?
You know, I don't know as a fact, but I doubt it.
Well, here's the thing is, why don't you let us know?
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. Austin Petersen here on the Wake Up America show. Glad to have you here. Thanks for joining us. It's 7:34. All right, the deep state, no longer the realm of conspiracy theory shows only, more mainstream alt-tech shows, like this one right here. The deep state. What is it? What does it mean? Is Donald Trump going to get rid of it if he gets into office next time? Can he get rid of it? Can any Republican get rid of it? Can any Libertarian get rid of it? Let's talk about the clues that have been out in the open about the dangers of the deep state with my good buddy, Jon Miltimore. He's the managing editor over at the Foundation for Economic Education, and he's joining us live in his own studio this morning. Good morning, Jon. How are you today?
Good morning, Austin. How's it going?
It's great. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today, Jon. So I read your article over at FEE.org. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's on the movie. Maybe your listeners have heard of the movie, 3 Days of the Condor. And it was what I remember watching this movie with my dad when I was a kid. He said, it's a great thriller. And I was very confused by the movie because it opens up. Robert Redford is, the hero kind of. He's a CIA analyst, but a low-level guy. Their office is hit by a bunch of killers, and you really don't know why. I think the opening's really cool because, like, all these killings, they're fast, they're professional, they're dispassionate. Like, at one point, one of the killers says, "Would you step away from the window, please?" and then he guns her down. And you realize like there's this big mystery why this happened. We don't know. The hero goes on the run, and he's working for the CIA in a small branch, and he's talking to the Home Office, and they're trying to help him. But at some point in the movie, you realize this is the big twist. The CIA, the plot came within the CIA. Like they were the ones that ordered the hit. Like basically he stumbled on some plot, Middle East oil thing that was the CIA was going to do to manipulate oil prices. And somebody in the CIA found out and decided the best thing to do was just take out the whole office. That's your spoiler. I hope I didn't spoil it for listeners. But it was one of those movies like, wow. And if you think about it, this movie took place in the wake of Watergate and the Pentagon Papers and the final stages of the Vietnam War, when people their eyes were kind of open and they were cynical about what government was at that time. And, I think that's why you could make that film then. I think you'd have a hard time making that film today. It's not as okay to be cynical about government, even though we have so much history since then that shows governments like our government is engaged in a lot of shady activity. There's a lot of agendas that you don't hear about in press releases. For me, the movie was very instructive. I kind of used it as that for people that were reading. We did a video on it as well. Like it's okay to recognize that the government is involved in this nefarious stuff. That the real terror, though, is that they're never held accountable. And that was sort of like the end of the movie. The hero foils the plot. He goes to the New York Times. But when the movie ends, you're the CIA director says, "You think they're going to print it?" And you're kind of left with the idea that they're not going to print it. And that's the question: accountability. What happens when people can do stuff but they're not held accountable? I think we're seeing that a lot today with a lot of the problems we've seen in recent years.
Imagine going to the New York Times thinking that they're going to publish an article that makes the government look bad today. Like if I were to give an explanation for why, there's so, it's less, I guess acceptable to criticize the government or to question the government in such a way or to question the deep state. It's because the mainstream media is more powerful than it was in the 1970s. I mean, it was a Republican administration, and that I think that's, the main reason why the Washington Post, was involved in the Watergate conspiracy. If it had been a Democratic administration, John, I'm not quite so sure Watergate would have even happened. But even more so today, if it's a Democratic administration, the media are lapdogs for the Democratic Party and the Democratic agenda, which, the Republican Party, unfortunately, has been, to a certain extent, have their own lapdogs in the media. And, the media really does it doesn't speak truth to power anymore. It speaks power to truth.
Yeah, your point, with Watergate's interesting because the media did hate Nixon. They hated Nixon with an unrivaled passion that I've never, and I wasn't alive when Nixon was president. I was born at the tail end of the 70s. But, I've read books on Nixon. You realize, they despised him with a fury that was unmatched until Donald Trump came along. Mm-hmm. And I always said there was a weird similarity between Nixon and Trump. Both guys that had some kind of impressive and remarkable qualities, and both guys that had some awful qualities. And I think the awful ones, those awful qualities, are what made a lot of the media really despise them and say, yeah, we are going to do whatever we can to take you down. I wouldn't say the media today is not as powerful, because we have so many other options today, but they are still powerful. And there is sort of a collaboration with the deep state. It's one of those terms I don't even like to use because you don't want to sound like a kook, right?
1776 will commence.
I think that the media's tactic is we're just not going to report on something that might not fit the narrative. It's not like which is kind of, I don't want to say they were actively hiding things, but I wasn't even going to mention, but why Ray Epps, right? Like here's this mystery guy. I'm curious about Ray Epps. And the New York Times does one story on this, January 6th protester who is encouraging people like crazy to get
in the Capitol. We're going to go into the Capitol. I've played clips of this guy on my show.
It's a glowing piece of him.
And it's just,
what's that part?
No, I was just saying, I've played clips of this guy on my show, and he's saying, we're going to go into the Capitol, like he's encouraging them in. He's like helping them go into the Capitol. It's kind of like, this seems like the guy who would be like prime target. But here's the thing, John, if people found out that the feds were in there encouraging that riot, that destroys the left-wing narrative about the January 6th event. If that were to come out, if Ray Epps were exposed to be a Fed, then you legitimize Alex Jones, you legitimize Donald Trump, in many ways, John, and this is probably going to get me taken down, you legitimize the January 6th event, the takeover of the Capitol itself. In my mind, if the government is involved in propagating people, in pushing them to try and overthrow the Capitol in that kind of a way, that is a government that deserves to be overthrown. Hell, John, I'm gonna go even further on this today and get myself in more trouble. We should have overthrown the government when they passed the New Deal. What do you say about that?
I say we should oppose the New Deal with every fiber of our being. It was something that never should have passed. But yeah, you don't need to be a conspiracy theorist for this. And here's why. All Merrick Garland has to do is answer one question. Did any federal agents advise or incite this attack? Right. This is something that was asked during Senate hearings. Were there any federal resources involved? And he refuses to answer that. And he was getting pushed by someone on the panel. It might have been Ted Cruz. Very simple. All we have to say, no, the federal government was not involved in any way with this. It's a very simple question to answer. He refused to do it. Like some of these are just like reasonable. I don't want to be thinking like our government could be involved in this. But here's the thing: you can't look at our government and think they're not capable of it.
Right. But I mean, like what we're talking about here essentially, John, is a Jean provocateur, right? But I mean, the thing is like, the first casualty in war is always the truth, right? But I mean, it's not like this hasn't happened before. It's not like governments haven't initiated false flags like this before. And I'm not even saying
much worse, right?
Yeah.
They've done things that were much worse. Like you can go back to looking at sending a letter to Martin Luther King to kill himself, or Operation Mongoose when the CIA's discussing a plot to blow up Miami. These records they're released. They're open now.
I mean, Operation Northwoods
blowing up. So many of these, Operation Paperclip, MK Ultra, all these weird programs that the government was involved in, that we find out about. Like, whoa, what is this? This is crazy. But there was never accountability, and we're kind of led to believe, well, that we're not doing that sort of thing today. Right? We're not doing that stuff anymore. Trust us. Absolutely. There's agendas that go beyond the press releases that we don't know about. And that's when, what I think of with the deep state. There are factions within the government that do all this stuff. A lot of it's, some of it's outright criminal. Some of it's just very unethical. But when they get caught doing it, they're not held accountable. And that to me is very dangerous.
John, did you have an opinion on the whole PayPal scandal of the whole like $2,500? Well, now they're saying it's not a fine, it's a fee. They're kind of playing semantics with it this morning. It's kind of breaking news this morning on Twitter where they're talking about, oh, well, it was erroneous. They didn't mean to release this. Here's the thing, John, this is just my opinion on this. Fact is, you don't release this kind of stuff if lawyers haven't looked over this. You don't do an update to a change of terms and policies if several layers of people haven't approved something like that and push it out and then say, oh, this was released in accident. Oops, I accidentally typed that into our policy and then released it out to the general public. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, you've probably read more of this than me. I've just read the headlines. I have on my desktop right now pulled up an article Jeffrey Tucker wrote for, I think, the Epoch Times on this. I was going to dig in a little bit more today. It's outrageous what I read. And I'm like, it was almost too hard for me to believe. That's why I got to read the fine print a little bit more. I'm like, how stupid could PayPal be? We're going to take your funds if you post stuff that on social media we don't like. We're going to take your money. It seemed too crazy. So I want to dive in a little bit more and find out some details. The thing is, I don't doubt it because we live in this kind of crazy time when you're seeing crazy stuff all the time. So, the fact that we're always being, the next thing, can that really be true? Like, it's obvious that we can question those things. But when you look, you're like, yeah, it's true. I do want to dig into it more. If PayPal might have shot themselves, I was going to say in the foot, they might have shot their whole leg off if they really pulled this, because people aren't going to. Hey, the one thing you want to get people like to take their money out, tell them that we're going to seize your funds. And we saw some of that during the protests, right? Like with the trucker protests in Canada,
right?
When they were just freezing funds, GoFundMe and all the, like said, no, we're going to, all those donations, they're just going to hold them. Not a smart business model, right? When people
PayPal did that to Eric July.
Seriously.
PayPal did that to Eric July. He was releasing his comic book, and he had raised $1.2 million from people who were buying his comic book. PayPal just says, no, we're just going to freeze your funds, and we'll decide when we want to give it to you, right? And that's the kind of stuff, John, that, that gives fuel to the fire of the national conservative movement, who says, that there's got to be some kind of an intercession between government and big tech. Not that I trust government to regulate big tech, but I'm just saying that, you can see why it adds fuel to the fire to those arguments, that there's got to be some kind of a prevention from them, because you can't just steal money from your customers. I don't care if there's no private contract.
Yeah,
that you can
it's like
just
still asset forfeiture.
Yeah.
Like you expect the government, to do. It's one thing when the government does it, because we know how sinister, like they have a long track record, and we can oppose that and fight that, and you have these lengthy court battles to get it back. But when businesses start to do it, it's absolutely frightening. The good thing is, people don't really need PayPal, and I think they'll figure that out. You know what? We use PayPal. I'm going to tell my wife, let's get our money out. Yeah. We got Venmo. We got other ways to do it. We don't need it. And I'm not gonna tolerate a business even flirting with that idea. No thanks.
Yeah, same here. It's time to start looking at alternatives. Jon Miltimore, the managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education, a good friend of freedom. We'll see you when we get back from Miami. Have a good one, brother.
Yeah, enjoy your vacation, Austin. Have a good one. You're the man. We'll see you later.
Thanks very much. We appreciate you very much. Do you like Jon Miltimore? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. Are there any topics that you think that we need to cover today? Anything that I'm missing? I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything that you want to hear from us about today. Somebody texted in and asked what I thought about Amazon's new Prime season today and tomorrow. You know what? I hadn't even thought about it. I've been so busy planning for the trip. But don't worry, you're still going to get a show tomorrow, and you'll get a live special from Florida on Thursday featuring me, my buddy Joe Trotter, and Judge Andrew Napolitano. It's going to be a good show. You don't want to miss it. Still to go, Camellia Petersen at 8 o'clock to talk about her thoughts on physical versus emotional cheating. At 8:35, J.D. Tuccille on how to survive a nuclear war. Sounds like fun, right? All that and more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
As a medic, to be there to help my patients, and after an injury, I found myself as a patient. I experienced post-traumatic seizures. Depression is a big one that comes along with it, PTSD. So I pursued my PhD in neuroscience and regenerative medicine. The coalition has helped fund my academic pursuits. They genuinely care about helping the vet in whatever way that they can. Through supporting the coalition, you're supporting some of the veterans that have the biggest needs.
Visit saluteheroes.org to learn more.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun. Thank you very much.
Had enough yet? Do facts facts no longer matter, our lies to be encouraged instead of punished, this is not our inheritance. If truth no longer matters, we will not remain free for long. This is our generation's challenge, to defend our founders' hope that we the people could self-govern if we defend our right to get the facts. And right now, we're building the only defense of free people have, the facts, on every politician, every position they held, every statement they've made, every vote they've made, and any cash they've taken. It's the real history on those now pandering for your vote. There are hundreds of young people building our defense right now, and they need your help. We all have our passions, but as our ancestors knew, when events become so foul they threaten us all, we must stand and defend each other. Please, have our backs. Join us at votesmart.org.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Halloween is coming. The festival of Samhain approaches, and your lazy butt doesn't have a Halloween costume yet? How can you pledge allegiance to the Dark Lord this year and possibly offend everyone at the same time? Visit the AP for Liberty shop and get your shirt today. The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. So grab your government is scary tea and tell everyone at the party that you're here to help. Other great seasonal items are available as well, so don't miss out. Then visit AP for Liberty Shop today. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, 7:53 on the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. Glad to have you here. Sometimes those commercial breaks come at me a little bit too fast. Glad to have you here. Charmed One was happy with my interview with Roger Stone yesterday. She said, excellent interview with Stone. Well, thank you, Charmed One. Appreciate that very much. Wanted to let you all know that if you're watching or listening to the show this morning and you're not on Twitch, I'm asking all of our followers and friends to join us over at twitch.com. My account over there is Stream Liberty. And really briefly wanted to explain to you, if you have Amazon Prime, you can actually give us a free subscription through Twitch by connecting your Amazon Prime account to Twitch and then gifting a subscription to Stream Liberty. It's free and it helps to support the show. If you don't know how to do that and you need somebody to help walk you through it, just head over to Twitch and ask anybody who's in there. My wife, anybody who's available who's there will join you and help walk you through the process and make it really easy for you. Still lots more great show to go. We've got Camellia Petersen joining me this morning at 8 o'clock to talk to us about her thoughts on emotional versus physical affairs. This conversation that we've been having over the last week, I started having it with Liberty Laura Langton, who joined me a few days ago, started over the whole Giselle and Tom Brady affair rumors. So if you're not up to speed on what's going on, Tom Brady, football man, and Giselle Bunchkin. Giselle Bundchen is she's the international supermodel, and they're talking about getting a divorce. And there's rumors flying about an affair, but the biggest reason seems to be that Giselle didn't want Tom Brady to go back into football, and she's upset about that. And I've got some interesting thoughts about that one that I'd love to share with you, but you're going to have to wait until 8 o'clock, and we'll see what Camellia Petersen has to say about that one. Let's finish off this show, this hour, with a discussion more about our financial obligations before we get into all the sexy times. What do you think? Okay, does that sound good? Okay, good. The world's largest asset manager, BlackRock, is facing $1 billion. This is such great news. In withdrawals, drop your draws, from because of the financial giant's investment priorities. This is according to the New York Post. BlackRock, they have about $8.5 trillion in assets, has come under fire because of their push for ESG investments that promote environmental, social, and governance issues. These ESGs, multiple Republican treasurers around the country, including my home state of Missouri. God bless you. God bless you, Missouri. God bless you. The multiple GOP treasurers announced that they're planning to withdraw, or they've already withdrawn their state funds from this company. Louisiana's treasurer, for example, John Schroeder, said last week that he's pulling out $794 million. Curtis Loftus of South Carolina is pulling $200 million. Utah treasurer is pulling out $100 million, and Arkansas pulling out $125 million. Now, these withdrawals pale in comparison to the billions of dollars in state pension funds that are invested in BlackRock. State treasurers allocate cash on hand in the Treasury, but they don't have any say in where pension funds are allocated. So despite these funding withdrawals, BlackRock's investments apparently have surged about $1 trillion since 2020. But 19 states' attorney generals wrote to the Securities and Exchange Commission asking the agency to look into BlackRock's ties to China and whether or not it was prioritizing its fiduciary responsibility to investors. Yeah, BlackRock is under investigation for their investments into China. I actually saw a really good interview the other day on this one, and if I have the possibility of pulling it up, I am going to do it for you. Right, yeah, they're taking your money and they're betting on China. Oh, man, so that video is just not going to come up, is it? Oh, this is what happens. There we go. Here we go. The group's
BlackRock
executive
may be pushing for a new corporate identity, focusing on things like ESG and so-called responsible investing. But now one politically aligned group is taking issue with that and going on the offensive. Eamon Jabbers joining us now with more on this fascinating story. Eamon.
Good morning, Brian. BlackRock, the huge investment corporation with more than $9 trillion in assets under management, is going to come under fire today from an unlikely source. It's a small conservative nonprofit group called Consumers Research. The group tells CNBC it will begin airing a TV ad campaign blasting the financial firm for its ties to China today, backed by a $1 million budget.
BlackRock, the biggest American money manager. Where are they investing your money? China. Pouring in billions, propping up Chinese communist leaders, putting money into surveillance companies used by the Chinese military.
Yeah,
but the
good
group
stuff.
tells me this campaign isn't motivated necessarily by BlackRock's dealings in China. Instead, the group's executive director tells me he's running these ads because he thinks BlackRock has become too, quote, woke, unquote.
Good stuff. Love it. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink accidentally says the quiet part out loud. Take a listen to this.
Well, today we manage $8.5 trillion.
People realize that that's quite that countries do not have that.
No, but none of it is our money. Not a penny of it is our money. Today we manage $8.5 trillion.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Here we go. Here's another great interview. This is from Fox Business.
You're absolutely right. My message to BlackRock is really clear. You can either espouse ESG or you can espouse China, but you can't do both. The values are fundamentally incompatible. And here's the mistake we made dating back to the 1990s in our Chinese policy, Jerry. We thought we could use our money, our investment, to get China to be more like us. We thought we could export Big Macs and Happy Meals and spread democracy in the process. They turned that on its head. They have now used their money to get our companies and our culture to be more like them. They've turned Nike sneakers and Disney movies as vectors, as Trojan horses, to advance their values, to criticize.
What I find so fascinating about this is that you'll find is that some of the biggest China hawks are some of these NatCons, these national conservatives that I've been so critical of. If you think that I'm just making that up, I have the receipts. You'll find many of these people who are pushing these national conservative policies talking about how much they adore China, how much they appreciate China's rule over its own people. I'll pull some of those quotes and clips for you. We'll have to talk about that in the next hour. First, let's have a little bit of fun. We're going to work our way over to our friend Camellia Petersen because it's way more fun to talk about sexy stuff, isn't it? Yes. No, Austin.
How dare you?
No, Austin. We want to talk about other stuff. We want to talk about BlackRock. What do you think? Yes, screw BlackRock, says Robbie Theriman. When we get back, we'll talk to Camellia Petersen on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Hello,
My name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake. Yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes. You like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
any real-world experience.
It's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Unveiled an artificial intelligence bill of rights intended to shape the way that institutions use this quickly evolving technology to protect consumer data and prevent discrimination, as it's been proven that this technology, specifically facial recognition technology, is not accurate when detecting faces of people of color. And one thing to note that's already been voiced by privacy advocates, is that this blueprint did not consider banning AI as a way to prevent harm.
Growth of facial recognition and what it's capable of brings with it a host of privacy and civil liberties issues. Because if you want a sense of just how terrifying this technology could be if it becomes part of everyday life, just watch as a Russian TV presenter demonstrates an app called Find Face.
If you find yourself in a cafe with an attractive girl and you don't have the guts to approach her, no problem. All you need is a smartphone and the application Find Face. Find new friends, take a picture, and wait for the result. Now you're already looking at her profile page.
Burn it all down.
Lawmakers across the political spectrum have been critical of the federal government's use of artificial intelligence, specifically facial recognition technology, for some time now.
50 million cameras, violation of people's First Amendment, Fourth Amendment liberties, due process liberties, all kinds of mistakes. Those mistakes disproportionately impact African Americans, and no due process, no elected officials gave the okay from the states for the federal government, FBI, to use it.
And according to a report from 2021, the Government Accountability Office reports that 20 government agencies, including those not generally associated with law enforcement, like the IRS, the Post Office, NASA, and the Fish and Wildlife Service, have already used this technology. A subsequent but similar report from the GAO details that officials who work within these federal agencies that are using facial recognition technology aren't familiar with which companies they're using to perform the data collection, and they're not sure how often they're doing it. When asked why the Bill of Rights published this week does not consider banning AI as a way to prevent harm, one senior administration official said that was not the point of the blueprint.
Good morning, it's 8:07 and you're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. Rise in freedom. Glad to have you here. Today is Twitch Tuesday. I'm asking all of the followers of the show who are listening in live right now to join us over on Twitch. Help support the show over there. We'd be glad to have you. All right. Now, I know my next guest has a very strong opinion about this because they kept typing comments vehemently when I was having this discussion with another friend of mine on the show the other day, Liberty Laura. But now it's time for us to hear from a very rare Camellia. Camellia Petersen, editor of the Libertarian Republic, joining us on the program right now live. Good morning, CJ. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Yes, I know you were disappointed to find out you weren't talking about government affairs this morning, but rather legitimate affairs. So glad to have you here. And I guess, the question is, this is related to, this all came up because of the divorce rumors surrounding football man Tom Brady and international supermodel Gisele Bündchen. They're supposed to be potentially getting a divorce. There are allegations of potentially cheating, but the discussion centers around the question of him going back into football and, not being able to spend as much time with the family. Now, I sent you, Camellia, this screenshot that I had I'd taken some interest in about 80% of women are the ones who file for divorce in this country, and she's just one of them. The person that I'm reading from says, imagine if Tom Brady were complaining about her still modeling and posting borderline nudes out there, even though he knew he was marrying a model. Yeah, I would imagine those saluting her now would be singing a different tune then. Let's just address that point first off before we get into the whole physical, emotional cheating question there. But I mean, she's upset that, football man is playing football. Your thoughts?
I mean, I would say she knew what she was getting into for sure. I mean, like that person pointed out. I don't know, details here on, if he. I haven't followed Tom Brady closely. Sorry.
Oh, really?
I don't know if he got out of football and then they were agreed that this is what he would do. And then he came back in. And so maybe that was like a change in what they had agreed on. So maybe there's some merit to that. But at the same time, I think that goes back to, what they agreed on. And if this was their understanding, I could understand her being upset. Worthy of a divorce? That's, I think, seems pretty unlikely that you would get a divorce based on that alone. So there are surely other things going on there that none of us have any business knowing, but
Well, and I mean, I know that the joke is that your dad always says never ask for marriage advice from a person who is divorced. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Right.
But I mean, one of the things that this person that whose screenshot was, she says, marriage is a lifelong commitment. It's not just about your and your husband's happiness alone when children are involved. If this is the genuine reason for the divorce, him going back to football, the L is on her. A good wife follows her husband's leadership, is supportive of him and his legacy, makes the home, and makes choices which benefit the family and children. Divorcing the father of your 3 children because you want him to be housebound, minimize what he has that goes on, is choosing your personal happiness over your family's. What are your thoughts on that?
I would largely agree with that. And if we are talking that alone was her reason, that he's going back into football and that takes him away from home more, because it takes him away from home 6 months out of the year. And so I get that, and I understand that, especially when you have kids, because it's hard for kids, when dads are gone. But this is not, this is like the norm for a lot of family. This is not something really new. It happens, and different families cope with it in different ways. There are ways to deal with those things. So I think that, yeah, I think if that's the sole reason, I think that's unreasonable on her part. And, if she loves him and they are partners in this, then she will want him to do not only what is best for him, but also is best for the family. And I think, that goes both ways. I think that he, likewise needs to do not only fulfill his own, personal needs, but more so he needs to fulfill the needs of his family.
If you're just tuning in the show, I'm speaking to Camellia Petersen. You can text us at 573-319-1586. Is the fact that 80% of women are the ones who initiate divorce a sign that women will never be happy?
I don't know about that. And, I'm a little skeptical about that statistic without really looking it up.
Mm-hmm.
But, and the thing is that it's phrased a little oddly in here, because she just says that she's one of 80% of women who file for divorce. Now, obviously, 80% of women total in marriages are not filing for divorce. That's like, we know that's not accurate. So maybe she's saying that of the divorces filed, that women.
The Whitley Law Firm. 3 reasons why women initiate divorce more often than men. 1, women are more likely to feel held back by marriage. 2, women often take on more of the emotional burden. And 3, women no longer tolerate consistent, unacceptable behavior. You could understand the third point, but on the first question, women are more likely to feel held back by the marriage. Does marriage hold women back?
I don't know about that. Nowadays, maybe women might feel like that. When I think about, what the state of marriage is in our society culturally, I always go back to this article that I've referenced several times called "The Nuclear Family Was a Mistake," because it talks about, the history of marriage and the family, and how that this ideal that we have now in our minds is kind of an anomaly. But one of the things in that article that has always stood out to me the most was that a psychologist, Eli Finkel, wrote a book, and in that he pointed out that Americans now look to marriage increasingly for self-discovery, self-esteem, and personal growth. And so, marriage, they're saying, is no longer primarily about, childbearing and child rearing. It's about adult fulfillment. And I think that that's true. And I think that's where a lot of the rise in divorces comes from, because in our relationships, marriages are much less utilitarian nowadays. And I think part of that, there's a lot of factors involved in that. And I think that, women working more and other things contribute to that. But we do, it's, we're all about, what completes me. And I think that's the wrong approach in general to relationships.
You can text the show this morning with your thoughts on this topic at 573-319-1586. Now, Camellia, the topic that I brought you on to discuss is the question of, cheating, because Megyn Kelly brought this up. She said that she would prefer that if her husband were to have an affair, she would prefer that he had a physical affair versus an emotional affair. Now, if you were in a marriage again, Camellia, and you had to choose, would you rather your husband cheat on you physically or emotionally?
So, it's like saying, what do you want, bad or worse, or I don't know.
But like somebody said that the other day. They're like, well, it's like choosing what form of cancer. well, I'd rather have melanoma than lung cancer. You know what I mean? Or I'd rather have toe cancer than have cancer of the spleen. You know what I mean? So I mean, there are definitely worse forms of cancer. So if you had to choose,
so I think if I'm going to say which one is worse than the other, probably emotional. One of the things I was saying the other day when I was chatting in the live stream was, you also kind of have to define what is emotional cheating. Mm-hmm. And you would hope that whoever your spouse, your partner is going to also be, your closest friend. Probably not your only friend, shouldn't be your only friend. That's not healthy either. But it is also true, as has been pointed out, that men tend to compartmentalize physical relationships much differently than women. And so sometimes I think it's hard for women to understand that, because for women, physical relationships also have a huge emotional component to it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's hard to explain to a woman why physical means so little to a man when it means so much to a woman. But for us, it really just is not the end all be all. Now, an emotional affair, I mean, I think it's harder for men to answer that question because we have a more difficult time explaining our feelings. And so if a man has an emotional affair, he's opening up all of these thoughts and feelings that he's not sharing with his wife. That seems to me to be the kind of thing that would need would be much more difficult to repair. Now, we've got a little bit of breaking news here, Camellia. You might have seen this already, and I know you're good at thinking on the fly. Maybe you've already seen this. Tulsi Gabbard announced this morning, "I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party that is now in the complete control of elitist cabal of warmongers driven by cowardly wokeness, who divide us by racializing every issue and stoke anti-white racism, actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms, are hostile to people of faith and spirituality, demonize the police and protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans, believe in open borders, weaponize the national security state to go after political opponents, and drag us closer to nuclear war." I mean, it goes on. I'll play the clip in the next segment, but CJ, your thoughts?
Damn, go Tulsi. Oh my gosh. Now tell me where you stand on 2A, baby.
Yeah, no kidding. Drop a like on the stream and the chat for Tulsi. Big time. This is very exciting. It's a long time coming. You think she's going to join us over in the dark side, the Republican Party, the GOP? You down with GOP?
I think it's probably a very good possibility. I mean, obviously for the last, year or more, 2 years, probably, she's been moving that way, and you've seen it just coming out little by little. And I do think that part of it is this notion that people are not leaving the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has left them behind. And I think in doing so, I think that has caused a lot of people to actually see the value and the importance of conservative and libertarian principles and, their role in our pursuit of liberty and happiness. So that's very exciting. With Tulsi, there's always been just like those couple of issues that I'm not, 100% sure where she stands on, but hey, let's go with the 80-20 principle. And I think she's definitely 80% there with us.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's exciting news. Camellia Petersen, I wanted to talk to you about so much more, but I just don't have time. I got to go to a commercial break. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Have a great day, everyone.
It was awesome. Did you like Camellia? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. Camelia's got to run. We got to go too. I'm going to play that Tulsi Gabbard clip of her leaving the Democratic Party when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
life. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us.
I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you? I want to ask you today to join Petersen's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Petersen's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupamericashow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
Speaker Pelosi's husband, Paul, made a big investment in chips just before Congress votes on a bill that would give $52 billion in subsidies and tax credits to the chip industry.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information he received from you?
No.
And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back. Do not come. Do not come.
Have you ever received a royalty payment from a company that you later oversaw money going to that company?
You know, I don't know as a fact, but I doubt it.
Well, here's the thing is, why don't you let us know?
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. It's 8:24, and you're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. Dude, this show has been awesome today. I hope you've been enjoying it. Have you been with us for the very beginning, or are you relatively new? Did you come into the show maybe a couple of weeks ago? Did you just find us? I'd love it if you would introduce yourself. If you're not one of the regular Cantina crew, maybe you're one of the people who's been lurking on the sidelines and you haven't quite introduced yourself just yet, we'd love to get to know you a little bit more personally. We love to make friends in this. I'm trying to build a community of freedom lovers so that we can all work together and drive more policies for freedom in our respective states. It's the Wake Up America show, and the Cantina crew would love to make your acquaintance. Today's Tuesday, so we're asking all of our followers to join us over on Twitch. You can join us on twitch.com/streamliberty. That's my username over there. But if you're on Facebook or YouTube this morning, don't worry about it. We love to have you over there as well. But just drop a comment, and we'd appreciate having you down there. The Bomb Doctor over on YouTube says that physical would be the type of cheating that he couldn't abide by. All right, cool. Let's move over to our Twitter weirdness scene this morning, and let's watch this breaking news. Tulsi Gabbard is officially leaving the Democratic Party. Let's take a listen.
I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party that's under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers who are driven by cowardly wokeness, who divide us by racializing every issue and stoking anti-white racism, who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution, who are hostile to people of faith and spirituality, who demonize the police but protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans, who believe in open borders, who weaponize the national security state to go after their political opponents, and above all, who are dragging us ever closer to nuclear war. Now, I believe in a government that's of the people, by the people, and for the people. Unfortunately, today's Democratic Party does not. Instead, it stands for a government that is of, by, and for the powerful elite. Now, I'm calling on my fellow common sense, independent-minded Democrats to join me in leaving the Democratic Party. If you can no longer stomach the direction that the so-called woke Democratic Party ideologues are taking our country, then I invite you to join me.
Wow. What are your thoughts on that one? Here's my thought in one word and one word alone. Coconut Milk Mommy speaks the truth. Tulsi Gabbard is leaving the Democratic Party. You'll love to see it. What are your thoughts? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. Brashing 1980 over on Twitch said, why is she even aligning herself with Democrats to begin with? Great question itself. The party has looked like that for a while. Well, she got elected to Congress. Let's see. When did Tulsi Gabbard get elected? Tulsi Gabbard first elected. I mean, the Democratic Party has changed a lot in the last 10 years. She was elected to the Hawaii House of Representatives 2002 to 2004. So she began her political career back in 2002 to 2004. I mean, God, when I had just gotten out of high school and I was in college, this woke stuff wasn't around. The Democratic Party has been going leftward, but not all the way back to 2002. It's been changing much more rapidly. Former presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard says she's leaving the Democratic Party. The one thing that gives me pause about this is just that sometimes it's better to have people like this in the party. In your opposing party that can call out their people on their own stuff, their own crap, right? What do you think about this? I'm just dying to hear your thoughts. Again, you can text me 573-319-1586. Remember when Tulsi basically murdered Kamala Harris on the debate stage? That was amazing. Exactly. See? So sometimes it's better when they're in there and they're running in that party. But best person on the left to consider having as a guest, former Tulsi presidential campaign director Paul Alexander. Frequent guest on Steve Deace. I would like to get that person. If you can hook me up with Paul Alexander, I'd love to have him on. Good stuff. Andy Opperman says, wow, starting to feeling an emotional connection to Tulsi. Well, don't get too emotional because we've got JD Tuccille coming on who's going to sober us all with his segment on how to survive a nuclear Armageddon. All that and more on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake, yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes, you like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a
public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Do you have any real-world experience?
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway.
I need help.
You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, it's 8:33. You're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. It's time to rise in freedom. Glad to have you here. All right, nuclear war, is it on the horizon? You can survive a nuclear exchange, writes J.D. Tuccille. He says politicians have turned the unthinkable into a real threat for which you should prepare. So how could you prepare for an actual nuclear war? It's sad we even have to have the discussion, but yet we do.
My name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bullshit. This is my Didi's website.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning, and we appreciate having you.
My pleasure, sort of, given the topic. How do we survive something like this? Well, I had hoped, and I think we all had hoped that these concerns were in the rearview mirror with the end of the Cold War, but obviously they're not. The nuclear weapons are still out there, and so are the people willing to use them. The reassuring thing is that those old movies like Threads and The Day After overstated the case. I mean, they took a worst-case scenario, which is a full-out thermonuclear exchange that targets cities, and that's very unlikely. And even then, they exaggerated the effects. That's very unlikely to be the scenario we're looking at. More likely is battlefield use, assuming it happens, and it doesn't have to happen. Hopefully it won't happen. But if there is an exchange, it's more likely to be battlefield tactical nuclear weapons, relatively low yield, probably, we can hope, confined to the battlefield in Europe. And the impact there is going to be probably more in the way of panic. I mean, it's horrendous for those who are immediately affected by it. It's not the end of the world. Nuclear winter would not be a thing. We've been assured by, and I drew from, and I should point out here, I drew from a book called Nuclear War Survival Skills that was prepared by a researcher at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, originally back in 1979, but since updated. It's a very credible, comprehensive resource For those of your listeners who are interested, that original 1979 edition can be downloaded for free from the Oak Ridge National Laboratory as a PDF file. And then hard copies are available for purchase from the usual outlets. But Crescent Kearney, who wrote that book, pointed out there'd be a horrendous situation if there was nuclear exchange, but that even in the worst case scenario, probably military targets would be the main targets because the combatants would not want to waste warheads on civilian populations, and that while that'll be horrendous for the communities around these military targets, most of us would not be immediately directly affected. So what can you do? Let's assume most likely scenario is a tactical exchange. Your best bet is prepared ahead of time. Don't panic and flee for the hills. You don't want to get caught on the highways. And don't be that person who, like before Hurricane Ian, is running out at the last minute to stock up on water and food, even though you always knew that hurricanes were a possibility. Have your supplies at home so you don't have to hit the markets when everyone else is freaking out about the imminent, peril that's coming down the road. If
it does go nuclear, I mean, how would NATO respond?
Well, that's a great question. The thing is, there's a lot of back and forth on this among NATO officials. They debate this themselves all the time. They war game this. They work out scenarios. And there isn't one answer. What I can say is that the U.S. also has tactical nuclear weapons. In fact, another one, a new one was added to that arsenal, submarine launches 2 years ago. So that is a possibility. Conventional weapons are a possibility. I mean, we could end up entering the war, with our conventional armies, tanks, bombers, the whole bit in Europe. Would it escalate from there? That's a big concern. I mean, it starts tactical nukes. Does it get worse? I mean, this is the sort of thing we worried about, our parents worried about, our grandparents worried about. We didn't want to be in the situation. So there isn't a clear answer as to how NATO would respond if Russia were to use 1, 2, 3 tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine. There would be a response. So I think we'd be pretty clear on that. Putin has been very blunt about threatening the use of nukes, says he's not bluffing. President Biden, of course, invoked the prospect of Armageddon last week, to the point where President Macron of France and Admiral Mullen, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, both told him to calm down and stop using language like that, because you don't want to back people in a corner and give them, less room to maneuver. You want to de-escalate the tensions and language in situations like this. Unfortunately, that's not the president we have at the moment. But the possibilities are there. The threats are there, but it is survivable. And the best bet is to be ready for panic and in the aftermath of a tactical exchange. And if it escalates, be aware that probably military targets are the greatest at risk, and that there are books and data on how to build shelters, get into your basement, get to the center of large buildings, survive the blast, and stay sheltered if there is a danger of fallout in your area. It's not a worldwide danger. It will be more or less confined to the region, depending on the size of the weapons used. It's also worth knowing that smaller weapons now prevail in the arsenals because they're more accurately targeted than the older weapons were. So, awful days. But it is a survivable scenario when we come out at the other side and hopefully say we'll never do that again.
If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to J.D. Tuccille from Reason Magazine about how to survive a nuclear war. Now, earlier you said that it wouldn't be, a nuclear winter type scenario where the world would be blotted, the sun would be blotted out by fallout. And is that because of the nature of tactical nuclear weapons versus ICBMs? Is that why you said that?
No, actually, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of these scenarios back in the day, and I'm talking about movies like The Day After, actually, productions like The Day After and like Threads, and then discussions by people like Carl Sagan of a Nuclear Winter. A lot of these were raised, even though they were exaggerations and not well based in science, as arguments against nuclear war in order to make it less likely at a time when the superpowers seemed to be on the brink. They weren't really well anchored in fact. And by the mid-'80s, the prospect of nuclear war had been disproved. It's not a thing. We're not going to blow the Earth off its axis. We're not going to, kill the possibility of raising crops for the next 20 years. We're not going to have nuclear winter. That doesn't mean it's good. I mean, that doesn't mean that burning cities, disrupting supply chains, knocking down grids is a good thing. It does mean that those worst case scenarios are not realistic, but we still want to avoid nuclear exchange.
No kidding. Now, JD, in regards to what Americans can do to prepare here, one of the things that they're doing in Russia and in Ukraine in some areas is are buying these kinds of pills that are to prevent the uptake of radiation into your thyroid. Can you talk about what those are?
Potassium iodide. It's really the one medication you can have ahead of time. It has to be taken, and look for it. If you purchase it, you should know that it can be toxic. See, it's not something you just dose up on. You use it at the right time when a strike is imminent, in order to have your thyroid gland uptake the non-radioactive, iodide, so that it will not later on take up radioactive iodine. So you can then offset or minimize the chance of damage from that source. It's not like putting on a lead suit against radiation, but it is one thing you can do to reduce the dangers inherent in being exposed to fallout and other sources of radiation. So potassium iodide pills are widely available, can be purchased online. Ukraine is stocking up their emergency shelters with this. Other countries in Eastern Europe are doing the same thing. I believe Poland was doing this early on, when it looked like some of the nuclear reactors in Ukraine might be damaged or melt down during the fighting. It is a helpful medication to have. It is not a cure-all. It is something to consider as part of your preparations if we get to the point where it's a larger scale exchange, not just something that's confined to Ukraine.
Now, JD, in your view, what would you think would be the scenario where it would actually be in Russia's best interest to use a nuclear weapon? Because in my view, it would seem to be almost, self-sabotage to a certain extent. But I mean, there has to be a reason for why they think it would make sense to use one. What could that possible scenario be? I mean, American involvement, NATO invades and actually puts American troops on the front lines with Russians, and in which case they would retaliate. I mean, under what scenario would it make any sense to Russia?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't think it makes sense to Russia. I mean, among other concerns, Ukraine is in the middle latitudes, which means that the prevailing winds blow from west to east, which means that if there is a use of nuclear weapons and there is fallout, the fallout's basically going to drift back towards Russia. This doesn't make a lot of sense. However, if you're on the Russian dictator retirement plan and your army is doing poorly in combat, it may not need to make sense for Russia. It may just need to make sense for Putin and those whose career is dependent upon his continued survival in office. That's speculation, of course. So I don't know that we can really well gauge the possibility of something like this happening. I think it's less likely to happen rather than more likely to happen. I think a lot of this is bluster, but I would hate to be proven wrong. It makes good sense to prepare for crises no matter what. To be ahead of the curve, not to be the one who's got to go out to the grocery store and stock up when everyone else is doing the same thing. So I think it probably will not happen. I think that Putin is trying to scare the West, get us, to demonstrate strength that his troops are not showing. But that's a hope, not a certainty.
We're speaking to JD Tuccille of Reason Magazine. JD is telling us how to survive a nuclear war. JD, is there any other advice or tips that you would give to Americans and people overseas who might be listening into our program right now?
Yeah, I mean, go to the sources. Nuclear war survival skills, either a copy purchased, a hard copy, or a PDF downloaded from the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. That would be the original. And then the Department of Homeland Security maintains on ready.gov preparation advice for all sorts of scenarios, and that includes for nuclear explosion. Those are good sources. They have good advice. And if you go through that and you keep your level head and you prepare as you should at all times anyway for a crisis ahead, we can hope that we made preparations for no good reason.
JD Tuccille, writer at Reason Magazine, thank you very much for your time and thank you for your insight on this very serious topic. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. What did you think of JD Tuccille? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. When we get back, William Shatner has a new book out, and in his book, he says that his trip to space felt like a funeral. Why is that? William Shatner says his trip to space on Blue Origin felt like a funeral. It was among the strongest feelings of grief I have ever encountered. What? We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamerica.show.com.
I enlisted as a medic to be there to help my patients, and after an injury, I found myself as a patient. I experienced post-traumatic seizures. Depression is a big one that comes along with it, PTSD. So I pursued my PhD in neuroscience and regenerative medicine. The coalition has helped fund my academic pursuits. They genuinely care about helping the vet in whatever way that they can. Through supporting the coalition, you're supporting some of the veterans that have the biggest needs.
Visit saluteheroes.org to learn more.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun. Thank you very much.
Enough yet? Do facts no longer matter? Are lies to be encouraged instead of punished? This is not our inheritance. If truth no longer matters, we will not remain free for long. This is our generation's challenge, to defend our founders' hope that we the people could self-govern if we defend our right to get the facts. And right now, we're building the only defense of free people have. The facts on every politician, every position they held, every statement they've made, every vote they've made, and any cash they've taken. It's the real history on those now pandering for your vote. There are hundreds of young people building our defense right now, and they need your help. We all have our passions, but as our ancestors knew, when events become so foul they threaten us all, we must stand and defend each other. Please, have our backs. Join us at votesmart.org.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Halloween is coming. The festival of Samhain approaches, and your lazy butt doesn't have a Halloween costume yet? How can you pledge allegiance to the Dark Lord this year and possibly offend everyone at the same time? Visit the AP for Liberty shop and get your shirt today. The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. So grab your government is scary tea and tell everyone at the party that you're here to help. Other great seasonal items are available as well, so don't miss out. Then visit AP for Liberty Shop today. That's AP for Liberty Shop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. It's Austin Petersen here on the Wake Up America show. Glad to have you here. Sorry about that real downer of a topic on the last segment, and I know that this next one isn't necessarily, more upbeat either, but I just thought it was a fascinating conversation to have. William Shatner reported that his trip to space on Blue Origin felt like a funeral. He says it was among the strongest feelings of grief that I have ever encountered. I thought this was really interesting too. Brashing 1980 over on Twitch, his comments on this one said that, imagine his perspective. The guy is 90 years old, has had so many achievements, but going to space at 90, that really hits home. You've accomplished all you're going to, which is exhilarating as it could be a sad realization. What do you think? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. We love to hear from you on the show. You can send us a text or join us over on Twitch. It's Tuesday, and we like to have our friends join us on Twitch on Tuesday. In his new book, William Shatner wrote that going to space, quote, felt like a funeral. The Star Trek actor went to space, of course, with Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin last October when he was 90 years old, and he said, quote, all I saw was death. It was among the strongest feelings of grief I've ever encountered. This story starts out a little dark, but I think it really actually has an upbeat and warm ending. But going to space was a pretty dark experience for William Shatner, literally and figuratively. His new book is Boldly Go, Reflections on a Life of Awe and Wonder. And the actor, of course, played Captain Kirk in Star Trek, wrote that he experienced profound sadness on his trip to space. He wrote in his new book excerpt, this was published in Variety, that I love the mystery of the universe. All of that has thrilled me for years. But when I looked in the opposite direction, into space, there was no mystery, no majestic awe to behold. All I saw was death. Now, he's 91 years old now, and he made history as the oldest person to travel to space. During the flight, he describes seeing a dark, cold, black emptiness unlike anything on Earth. He says, my trip to space was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it felt like a funeral, he wrote. It was among the strongest feelings of grief I have ever encountered. The contrast between the vicious coldness of space and the warm nurturing of Earth below filled me with overwhelming sadness. So he's describing an experience, what's known as the overview effect, which is a cognitive shift in how one thinks about Earth and life that many astronauts report feeling during space flight. So it's not uncommon for people to feel the way that William Shatner did. He said, everything I had thought was wrong. Everything I expected to see was wrong. I had a different experience because I discovered that the beauty isn't out there. It's down here with all of us. Leaving that behind made my connection to our tiny planet even more profound. Now, he's talked a lot about some of the emotions that he felt on the space flight when he got back on solid ground. He told Jeff Bezos, what you have given me is the most profound experience. I hope I never recover from this. Shatner said in an interview earlier this year that he couldn't stop crying after the journey because he was, quote, grieving for the destruction of the Earth. There were a few other people that joined Shatner on that New Shepard rocket for that space flight. They experienced weightlessness and they saw the curvature of Earth on the 11-minute trip. In my mind, I think that this story is beautiful because it reminds us of how important and beautiful and precious life is on our planet. And while I am one of those people who is a space futurist, and I do believe that it is in humanity's future to go out and to colonize other planets and to go to the stars, and I hope Elon Musk does go to Mars. For me, I think I'm going to stay right here with you. Well, maybe if you're in Florida, I'll be with you later today. I'm going to leave the show just a few minutes early today so I can pack up and get things ready for my trip. I'm going to go to Miami tonight, and then we'll be in Key Largo for a few days doing some scuba diving, but you're still going to get your shows for the next 2 days. Tomorrow you're going to get, Wednesday, you'll get a show that I pre-recorded and put together, a best of show, some of my best interviews and monologues from the last few weeks. I spent the last week putting that together for you, so you'll have a show tomorrow morning. Please definitely join us. It'll be Rumble Wednesday, so it'd be great if you could join us over on Rumble or any of our other platforms as well. On Thursday, you'll get another live, fresh show from the beaches of Florida. You'll see me, Judge Napolitano, my buddy Joe Trotter. We'll talk about Hurricane Ian. We'll talk about Ron DeSantis, all things Florida. Maybe we'll see an alligator and possibly even a shark or a turtle or two. Thank you so much for supporting the Wake Up America show. If you're still with us over there on Twitch, don't forget to connect your Amazon Prime account to Twitch and gift us a subscription to Stream Liberty. If you don't know how to do that and you're kind of nervous, don't worry about it. Just ask anybody in the live stream who's there right now. People will be happy to walk you through the process. It's free. It's not too hard. You just have to gift us a subscription on Twitch. It helps support the channel. It gives us a few bucks and helps us to grow. Thanks so much for watching the Wake Up America show. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Well, really, I'll see you on Thursday. But you're still going to watch the show tomorrow, aren't you? On the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Displayed proudly on your coffee table, or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.